longest active goalless streak in the AFL. Game 202 and goal 2.
Back-to-back goals. He's kicked the last three, make it Paddy Dangerfield. Richards. Caleb Daniel. He's got forward. He's joining the party.
Hello, I'm Damian Barrett and welcome to Access All Areas, brought to you by Sportsbet. One massive game remains in the 2020 home and away season, but the top 8 is locked. Matthew Lloyd, as always, is with me. Lloydo, the Western Bulldogs were very impressive in securing their spot.
That midfield of the Western Bulldogs, Damo, is that powerful. They're going to be very, very dangerous come finals time. And Fremantle, they went into that game in pretty good form, but they were overwhelmed by the Western Bulldogs in this second quarter. And you just look at it here. Some of the slick handball in Cairns, you've got to be pretty careful there. It can be quite slippery conditions, but seeing Jason Johannesson, Caleb Daniel getting forward of centre, I think the forward line's still a little bit of an issue with some injuries, which we'll talk about shortly, but you see the form of Hunter, Bailey Smith, Bontempelli, Liberatore, Dunkley. They're going to be hard to match up on because of the depth, Damo, of that midfield. So it was an impressive performance. And to see Tim English push forward and kick a couple of goals as well through periods of this game was an added bonus for the Western Bulldogs.
This vision we're watching here, Lotto, this is when they set the game up just before half-time, wasn't it? It was a bit of a grind early days, but you were right. They were so clean when they needed to be. And this is similar to what they went into the 2016 final series with.
Yeah, they're going to be a tough team to come up against. And I think that, as I said, the midfield, they're all in good form. You know, it's not as if there's one or two that aren't. And you know, obviously with Dunkley coming back in the latter part of the season, it's just added depth. Libba seems hungry. Lockie Hunter had his concerns throughout the year, Damo, but he 34 disposals yesterday. He was in awesome form and looks extremely happy as well.
A couple of injury concerns to emerge from the game. Aaron Norton has a fractured cheekbone, which will be having surgery on, but he's still hopeful, and so too is the club, obviously, of him being available for that first final, given the week's bye. But there will be some nervous moments before that is signed off. And also too, Lordo, ending the game on the bench was Mitch Wallace, who's become so crucial to what they're about this year with a left shoulder injury. Again, there is an expectation he will be right to play, but they couldn't win a final, I wouldn't have thought, without those two players.
Yeah, you're spot on. Not ideal when your two best forwards get injured in the last game of the season. Mitch Wallace looked pretty dejected on the bench. I thought he thought his season could have been over with the way he was looking at the end there. But I remember he missed the premiership year through that knee reconstruction. So let's hope he's a part of it. And with Aaron Norton, I've seen players play after a week if it's around the cheekbone. But if it's up near the eye socket, you'd think he'll be ruled out and would be unavailable to play in the first final.
Yeah, with that one final game to be played tonight, Port Adelaide versus Collingwood, the 8 looks like this. Now, clearly, if Port win that game, they will go to top, which will then push the Lions down to second spot, and the Magpies would obviously stay in 8th spot. If the Magpies win, though, Lordo, they elevate themselves to 6th, dropping the Saints and the Bulldogs down to 7th and 8th.
Yeah, that's right, Damo. And you think if all things go to plan, that the Power can win this game of football. It's at the Gabba, so it's on neutral territory that Collingwood would unfortunately have to go to Perth to play the West Coast Eagles. But I wanted to look at who has beaten who from the top 8 sides. And it's a concern for the Western Bulldogs. I know they're in better form as the season has unfolded, but they've only beaten the West Coast Eagles from the top 8 sides this year. And you look at the top, the Brisbane Lions have beaten 5-2, which is good things for them. But the unfortunate aspect is they can't beat Richmond, and that is who I think they'll play in the first week of the finals if the Power beat Collingwood in tonight's game of footy.
OK. The Cats secured their double chance berth with a win against the Swans, but, gee, they had some nervous moments, and it went right down to the wire, this one.
It did. Sydney kicked the first 3 goals, and we see right at the end they had to scrap and fight for it, and they just couldn't get their game together. These are the dying seconds. 19 seconds to go. Obviously, they're just scrambling here, Geelong, because if they lose this game of football or even have a draw, they would lose top 4 spot, and the Eagles would have jumped into the top 4. And I just love the back line of Geelong. Tommy Stewart gets a big fist in here, and Mark Blixsavs. What about a smother and then the ball kicked out of here just to buy them that or get them that top 4 spot? And Chris Scott, he wasn't happy. I think sometimes, Damo, when you make wholesale changes. You see him storm out. He wasn't celebrating. Ablett came in. Selwood came in. Jack Stephen came in. Sometimes it can unsettle the team a little bit, and some guys are a little bit rusty. They look like a team that just thought it would happen, and Sydney are a team that makes you earn every victory you get against.
Look, I love the use of Paddy Dangerfield yesterday as a forward. Had the 5 shots at goal for a return of 3 goals too. Him going forward takes the opposition out of whatever comfort zone they might have. He plays at times, doesn't he, Lloydo, as a true forward?
I think it needs to be a 50-50 split for Paddy Dangerfield. I don't think he's travelling that well in the midfield. I thought he was very quiet against Richmond the week before as well. And he had to go forward, and I think it helps Tommy Hawkins. I think teams like Richmond will just know where the ball's going with Tom Hawkins when Geelong play Richmond. So that's something I plan. Send Dangerfield down there. It takes Dylan Grimes out of the game. Might be grand final day. Take Dylan Grimes out of it. And he changed the game yesterday, changed the fortunes. They had no answer for him, the Swans defenders.
Is the option there also to play that forward role for Gary Ablett? He returned yesterday after an extended layoff. He came out of the quarantine hub and he was more than acceptable with what he did. Do you think he too, Lloydo, as this finals progress, could play that Paddy Dangerfield forward role at times?
Yeah, I think that with Ablett, his marking isn't his strength. It's more he's bringing other players into the... But his foot skills were first class. He had 16 disposals, 7 scoring involvements, kicked 1 himself. So, yeah, I wasn't sure whether I'd bring him back into the team, but Brad Close and Atkins and those sort of players, Ablett, he can kick you 2 or 3, he'll set up 2 or 3, showed his class yesterday. They would have been wrapped with his performance. They can get another good week of training into him. And even this touch, Damo, the way he weights the ball, he's as good a field kick that the game has ever seen. So that was brilliant yesterday from him.
A couple of Hawks had really, really nice farewells yesterday. Ben Stratton and Paul Puopolo, and both players, Lloydo, added an element to their own highlights reel packages with Puopolo's goal here and another one that we'll see in a few moments from Stratton kicking the 2nd goal of his career. It was a nice way to send off those Hawks, and they smashed the Gold Coast Suns. Yeah,
it was. We'll talk about the Suns in a second of what a poor finish to their season, but let's just celebrate 2 wonderful careers. Paul Puopolo, when I first saw him, I wasn't sure how long he'd last at AFL level. Did he have enough skill? Didn't he have enough tricks? But he's got the heart the size of Farlap. And, I think that he and Stratton, 6 premierships between them, been wonderful players. Benny Stratton, he's had a tough season, Damo. But I thought it was pretty sad for the Gold Coast Suns that a year on from when Jared Ruffhead dined out on them, kicking 6 goals in the last game, when you can start feeding players the ball in the last game of the year, it just shows how far a team has fallen, which the Gold Coast Suns have late in the season. They were pathetic yesterday. 7 goals down at quarter time, just not good enough. And you just wonder when the wheel's going to turn. Doesn't look like it's turned like we thought it had for the majority of this season.
We'll continue talking about the Suns, Lloydo, as we look at Jack Gunston's performance yesterday. 4 goals for him. And again, you reference a Jared Ruffhead farewell game last year. It's possible that he is going to be considering his future away from Hawthorn. It's been discussed widely and publicly before this game yesterday. What would you do if you're him?
He loves Hawthorn. He's had great times there. He's been a 3-time premiership player there. I think he enjoys bringing the young players along, and I wouldn't be letting him go if I'm the Hawthorn Footy Club. I think he's probably the first magnet that goes on the board. If you're Alistair Clarkson, he's kicked 31 goals in an underperforming team. Just the class that he's got. He can play half back, he can play half forward, he could dominate any area of the ground. So if I was him, I'd stay and help out the next generation of Hawks.
And from one South East Queensland team, the Gold Coast Suns, just the 5 wins and the 1 draw, to the other end of the ladder. As we speak, they are sitting top of the ladder, the Brisbane Lions, after their win on the weekend. And, Lloydo, they've been impressive all year, and it's some lesser lights who are just getting the job done. They had to grind this one out against Carlton, who was gallant, it must be said, but players like Starcevic and McCarthy and Archie, who don't always get their headlines, but I know that internally they are viewed as crucially as the bigger names.
Yeah, we wanted to show this because there's been, this time last year going into the finals, there was a really unhealthy reliance on Charlie Cameron. And I even made the point about Harris Andrews. I wasn't sure they could win it without Harris Andrews, but their form since Andrews has been out and Cameron has had a form lapse for pretty much the second half of the season, so many players have just picked up the slack, Damo. So they're a much more even side than I thought they were. And I think they go into this final series much better prepared for the experience of last year.
Cade Simpson walked off an AFL ground for the final time after 342 appearances. He held up, as he always has throughout his career, Lloydo. As we speak, the Carlton Footy Club is having its exit meetings here on the Gold Coast. What do you see happening beyond the decision already made on Cade Simpson?
Well, I would have moved on Eddie Betts, as hard as that would have been, but I think that Cade Simpson's done it beautifully. He's left at the top of his game, and he probably was spent physically, mentally, and he probably didn't want to go into next year thinking, I don't want to end on a sour note where maybe I don't play my best footy. So he's been one of the Carlton all-time greats. I think Mark Murphy's been good enough to go on and have another year. So to me, it'll probably just be Cruiser and Adam Simpson moving on, and the rest will play on, although I probably don't agree with the Eddie Betts decision or most likely outcome that he plays on next year.
Let's take a look now at the premiership market with that one final home and away game to go with Nathan Brown of Sportsbet.
Yeah, thanks, Damo. We know the final eight, so we can have a look at the premiership market, and Richmond are the favourite with good reason. They are flying. No matter who they play on their side at the moment, Richmond, they are the best side in the competition. The one that surprised me, and I still think is value, is Port Adelaide. They were $7 last week. Obviously played tonight, but they're out to $8. They've gained $1 without even playing, so they still are the value. And the Western Bulldogs, the interesting one. They're a big price. Do they go to Perth? They probably stay at that price. Do they go to the hub in Queensland? I think they shorten. All relies on Collingwood tonight. Now, the Brownlow medal, Lachie Neale, super short, but I reckon there's a couple of guys that voted. Jack Steele was very good, and so too was Christian Petrarca. But the Brownlow without Neale is where it gets interesting. Travis Boak plays tonight. The two players under him, Petrarca and Steele, definitely voted on the weekend. And if we're talking about futures, let's have a look at the Norm Smith medal market with everybody in from the top 8. Dustin Martin, he's won it twice already. I think his side plays in a grand final, so those odds will shorten. Good luck if you're gambling, and do so responsibly. And Damo, tuck your shirt in, mate.
The day I take advice off you, Nathan Brown, will be the day that hell freezes over. Lloydo, Harley Bennell has about to be sent home from the Gold Coast for a breach of the COVID-19 protocols. I don't now see him being on the Melbourne list next year.
Yeah, obviously, we wait circumstances. Here he's had some family issues, and he may be have had some mental issues in regards to some family heartbreak around him. But still, I feel Harley's had so many chances. You want to trust him, you want to believe in him. He got himself fit. He was able to play in the first game, but lost his spot. And I'm like you. I think Melbourne may move past Harley Bennell and put their future in younger kids who you can trust a little bit more. And I'd probably move him on as well, Damo.
Yeah. Look, all these clubs now are having their exit meetings, Lloydo, and there's big discussions to be had at Essendon. We've known for some time that Joe Daniher will seek a move away again. Orazio Fantasia will also have a look at that. Adam Sard is yet to commit, and look, there's so many offers for him out there that I think he will go as well. And we've also known that there is a bit of unrest with Carl Hooker and even Michael Hurley. Now, I expect Michael Hurley to stay. Both Hurley and Hooker are contracted, but I think if a club came to Carl Hooker, I think it's game on with where he could end up for next year. Now, this is all speculation, of course, leading into the official trade period, but your club, your ex-club, Lloydo, it's got a lot of decisions to make on a lot of big-name players. Yeah,
they had their Crichton medal straight away, so they was won by Jordan Ridley, so congratulations to Jordan Ridley. 26 games of football, and he's won his best and fairest. That was an amazing achievement. So that's the positive. The negative is, once a best and fairest is over, players have no more formalities, and they can tell their club what their intentions are, and it'll be a sign of where Essendon is at as an environment if the likes of Daniher, Sard, Fantasia all decide to leave the football club. And I'm probably with you, probably leaning towards it. They all decide to leave, which is not a good sign. And if Hurley and Hooker, two stalwarts of the club, are also unhappy, the club's got to take a good hard look at themselves.
Shane Edwards did as Gary Ablett did, Lloydo, and emerged from a quarantine hub to effectively dominate a game of footy. Certainly Edwards did anyway with what he put up against the Adelaide Crows. And it's incredible when you think about it, for someone who's played so much footy as he has over a long period of time, to just come in and be so clean with his disposal. Some players lose their hunger when they've had so much success and they've been around as long as Shane Edwards, but he came in, hasn't played for so long, and you can just see how fit he is, how sharp he is. So it's just testament to his professionalism, how much work he's done on his own,
away from the teammates at Richmond to come in and impact the way he did. He made them a much better side yesterday.
Lloyd, you wanted to talk about the pressure with which the St Kilda Footy Club applied in a game that it had to win to be assured of a finals berth, and they absolutely delivered. Now, they might have come up against a team that is demoralised in itself, but they made sure of it early on with some serious pressure.
I was blown away by it, and you just could see the way they even manned the mark. They jumped up and down. The intent, they could see they were playing against a side that wasn't travelling well, and they went for the kill. And this was late in the game. You can see 14 minutes to go. They're up by 40-odd points, and they just hunted. And in turn, goals just flowed from that. So I just thought that they've been good all year, but I thought they stepped it up on the weekend. I think I asked Brett Ratton about it. He said, we've said if we want to go deep in the finals, we've got to step up our pressure rating, and that was as good as I've seen from a team for about 6 weeks.
The Giants reintroduced Stephen Coniglio, their captain, back into the fray, but it didn't have the impact that they wanted. He was okay, but he was only okay, and they got blown away. They've now parted with their two aged ruckmen in Mumford and Jacobs. They've only got a very young ruckman on their list now, and clearly they need to go and get one before next season.
Yeah, right across the competition. Just I reckon of the 18 clubs, there's about 13 of them who their first choice ruckmen have come from other clubs. And I speak of Toby Nankervis, who was one that was 24, 25 years of age. He was probably sitting behind the likes of Darren Jolly and those type of players at the Sydney Swans, and you go and try and cherry pick them. There's only one ruckman that can generally play, and they have to go hard. They can't go for guys like Jacobs or even a Goldstein where they only give you a year or two. They've got to go hunting for a 23, 24, 25-year-old who can play the next 7 or 8 years as the number one ruckman at the Giants. If they can't do that, they're not going to win a premiership or even be top 4 next year. So that's got to be their number one objective, as well as getting some passion back in the jumper and playing a united front, because they played as individuals for most of this season, the Giants.
Lloyd, you can never get enough of watching Liam Ryan play footy, and what he did against North Melbourne the other night was from the very top shelf of a performer who's been top shelf pretty much throughout his entire career already. He
turned the game. They were very, very poor. North Melbourne jumped them. I thought most of the midfield were off. I thought they were second to the ball. They didn't handle the conditions well, slippery conditions. But Liam Ryan changed that game. He turned that game of football. There's not many players in the game that can change how a game is happening, and Liam Ryan changed it and won that game along with Oscar Allen for the West Coast Eagles. They've got to improve a lot if they're to have an impact on this final series of West Coast Eagles.
Well, North Melbourne publicly exited 11 players during the week, or just immediately after that particular game. There's still a lot of unknown about Ben Brown. I expect him to be elsewhere in 2021. I think Sean Higgins, even though he signed a new deal about this time last year to stay at the Roos into 2021, I think he will have a look at the market again, and there will be interest in him because he signed a contract that is now different to where the club is at, and clearly Jared Pollock is gettable should a club want to take him on as well. So there's more moves afoot at North.
They have to be really careful though, North Melbourne, because if you cull too many at the one, they've delisted 11. I'm fine with that. But if you start saying Ben Brown, what can we get for him? Higgins, what can we get for him? Well, then you've got no senior leadership. I think Jack Zeeble has really struggled for a long time. Probably shouldn't even be captain next year with the way his form has been. Cunnington's got a bad back and has been really struggled. So if you start clearing out Goldstein, Higgins and Ben Brown, well, suddenly there's nothing for young guys like Simpkin and Davies Uniacke to look up to. So I'd be keeping those 3 players if I was North Melbourne.
OK, Lloyd, so with everyone now on the verge of finals, we at AFL.com.au will be looking at the 30 famous finals moments from the past 30 seasons of football, and your team will feature in a couple. I have to raise this one first though, Lloyd. I won't tell you which number this one comes in at, but this Fraser Brown tackle on Dean Wallace is very prominent in that list.
Well, that one hurts me. I had 5 on Sauce that day, so I don't know why Wallace didn't kick the ball to me at that stage. But this is a better moment for me, Damo, watching this. The 1993 Grand Final when Michael Long set the MCG alight on his way to a Norm Smith medal. Oh, the roadrunner pace of Long, and then this moment from Sauce thinking he touched it when he clearly didn't, Sauce. So I'm not sure who you're trying to kid there. That was a great grand final moment.
I love the way you've just pitchforked yourself in. I kicked 5 on sauce in that 99 prelim. Yeah, well, good on you, Lloyd. You lost the game of footy. You should have won. Hey, yeah, now listen, have a look at what happened in the Geelong hub yesterday. The partners and the families of the Geelong players watching the game in the Gold Coast hub. We just saw before, that game went down to the last second. Now, they're all watching it. You can see where the ball is, and it's about to be kicked. Have a look at left of screen. The little girl, Luna Enright, on screen, hits the foxtail button, Lordo, and takes it across a rugby league game.
Yeah, and it's only 16 seconds to go, so they don't know what's happened. The game is ending. People, pandemonium. They're 6 points up. Have we hung on? Have we not? They don't realise that Blixarves and Stewart have saved the game. But look at the reaction from the obviously the wives and partners and the kids. Priceless moment, Luna Enright. That is one of the plays of the year.
I love that pile on with the kids right at the end of it. Hey, Lloyd, thanks as always on Access All Areas today, and thanks for watching. We'll be back next Monday.